pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Welcome, Steve. Thank you for
Huh?
being here.
Glad to be here. Thank you. I've never had the little hands clapping coming up like that before. That's pretty cool.
Smith was offered a special job. Yeah. If anybody has their things unmuted, if you can please mute them, so we don't interrupt Steve. So, Steve, whenever you're ready, if you want to take it away, tell us about your writing, if you want to share some excerpts or whatever you want to tell us.
Well, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the book briefly and maybe just quickly about myself if no one knows who I am. And then I'd like to take questions because I like to answer your questions. I like to know what's on your mind, the things you want. So let's try to make this a little interactive if we could. I don't really like to sit here and talk. It's not my thing. Um, so you gave a pretty good overview of the Devil's Bible. It was created sometime in the 13th century, the early part of the 13th century. That we do know. It was created somewhere in Bohemia, which is now modern day the Czech Republic. We don't know exactly where, but somewhere there. It rattled around in Bohemia for about 300 years, 350 years, until the Swedes came during the 30 Years' War. They went into Prague, looted the castle, stole the book, brought it back to Stockholm. It's been there ever since. It is a remarkable document. It is, as you said, very big, 3 foot by 2 foot by 9 inches, weighs 165 pounds is what it weighs, so it's very heavy. Here's an odd thing about it. It was penned by one person all the way through, which would have taken about 30 years to do. The handwriting on the first page and the handwriting on the last page is the same. There's no degradation over age. Imagine what your handwriting looked like at age 20 and what it would look like at age 50. It's going to change. It's going to get a little different. This does not. It is consistent all the way through, which is really odd. And there's not a single mistake anywhere in the manuscript, which is quite remarkable considering it was handwritten. All of that fascinated me. And so I wove a modern day thriller around it. And now Russia, the United States, the Czech Republic, and Sweden all want the Devil's Bible, but for totally different reasons. And it's up to Cotton Malone to steal it and get it to the right person. And that's where the thriller is. All of my thrillers involve something from the past, something you may not know a lot about, but I'm hoping you're going to know more about or want to know more about. And then I weave a modern day thriller around that thing that still has to matter today. I call the thing from the past the ooh factor, the thing that kind of makes you go, ooh, like, cool, I want to know more about that. And the other part is the so what? Okay, who cares about that? It's cool, it's ooh, but what does it matter today? Well, I had to make it matter today. I've done 29 thrillers over Cotton Malone, 20 of Cotton Malone's. This is his 20th adventure. I've done two Luke Daniels adventures, which is a spinoff from Cotton Malone. Then I've done seven standalones. Do not be put off by the 20 Cottons. You do not have to read them in order. I write them so that you can read them in any order you please. You can pick them up however you want. It's not going to affect one way or the other for you. Um, I started writing when I was 35 years old in 1990. But from the day I wrote my first word to the day I sold my first word was 12 years. I wrote 8 manuscripts during that time. 5 went to New York houses, rejected 85 times. I made it the 86th time, 12 years after I started. And that was in 2003 with The Amber Room. And now here we are, 29 books later, uh, still going strong. I'm in 51 countries and 40 languages around the world. You have to kind of pinch yourself sometimes. It's kind of only in America can that happen after 85 rejections. So I was a lawyer for many, many years, for 30 years. I now don't do that anymore. I now write full time, so I get to do this for a living. That wasn't the plan, but it just kind of worked out that way. This book came out last Tuesday, and will and it's done really well so far, very, very well. There'll be a new book next year, the Luke Daniels thriller, the third in the series with Luke Daniels. And that one's going to be a lot of fun because it deals with Walt Disney. I've always wanted to do a thriller around Walt Disney, and yeah, did it for next year. Not where Disney's just an incidental. He's actually the plot. He's actually part of the plot, and it's called The Sorcerer's Veil. It'll be out in February of next year, and then Cotton will come back in 2028 with another adventure. There's a lot going on in Cotton's world over the last 3 or 4 books, this one included, and the one coming in 28. I'm changing up Cotton's world. It's not going to be the same for him anymore. No one is safe either. It's like a Game of Thrones episode. Everyone's on the table, everyone's on the chopping block. And it's been kind of fun for me to be able to chip it up a little bit. So there's getting a little kind of reboot of the series happening. And this book is no exception, where there's a surprise waiting for Cotton in this, which we won't talk about because we don't want to give it away to anybody. But there's more coming down the road as his world gets kind of topsy-turvy. So that's really what I wanted to tell you about. Let's see what you guys want to talk about. Let's do some questions. Don't be bashful. Oh, I get to read. Oh, I say I read them. Do you know who created it? No, we do not know who created the Codex. We know it was created in a monastery in Bohemia. We do not know who the scribe was. We think we know what monastery it was, but they really don't know for sure. And that is discussed in the novel. I do have it in there, which is the best guess of where it came from. It was really kind of like an almanac. It was like an assembly of, it was like an encyclopedia. It had the Bible, the complete Bible in it. It had histories, alchemy, recipes, biographies. It had all kinds of stuff in it. It was like an almanac almost of knowledge of the time, but it was so big and so wieldy, you couldn't really do much with it. You have to, and that begs the question, why create a book so big you can't even open it? And you have to put it on this super supported table and all. So we don't really know a lot about it, and that's what made it fun for me because then I could interpose whatever I wanted to on it.
I'll ask. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, my name's Julie Harper. I'm a professor at Wor-Wic, an English professor, and a lot of my students are on tonight. And first, I just want to thank you so much because we know how very blessed we are to have someone of your caliber of a writer with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I've been following your Facebook and YouTube since I found out you were coming. So just, very interested. But I am interested in knowing this is just, I like to ask people this because it tells me a little bit about them. What's your favorite Disney movie?
Well, that's a good question. I would have to say my favorite movie is a movie you probably don't know a lot about. It's a movie called Treasure Planet. It was put out in the 90s, I think, maybe, or maybe even the 80s. It's a animated feature that deals with a group of people going on a treasure hunt, but it takes place in space, and they go to planets and all. So instead of the treasure hunts I do, where we go to castles and churches and all kinds of things, theirs is in planet. I often think it would make a terrific live action series for Disney it's almost like Indiana Jones and Star Wars and all of that kind of combined together, which is really interesting. And I've always it's a different kind of movie. I invite you. You can watch it on Disney Plus. It's called Treasure Planet. And I've often thought if I wanted to write a sci-fi novel, it would have been fun to do that, to have a treasure hunt in the future where they're after these things, and there's some stuff that we can relate to, but there's also other things in the sci-fi realm that would make it. And I just think it'd make a great franchise for Disney to make it out of it. That's probably my favorite movie. Yes.
Thank you. I will definitely
Okay.
look that up.
All right. Treasure Planet.
Okay, we have a question from the chat. What was your favorite book to write?
Oh no, I love all my children equally, I have to say. I love them all equally. They're all special because they all were special when I created it in my head and then wrote them. There are a couple that kind of stand out. The list is interesting. It came out last uh, July of last year. It was my second novel I ever wrote. It's not action, history, secrets, conspiracy. It's action, secrets, conspiracy, no history. It's if you're a John Grisham fan, if you're a David Baldacci fan, you're going to love it. It deals with a lawyer in a small town who works for a paper company there, and this company has a very unique way of controlling its cost. It basically uses murder to pull that off. So I wrote it and I rewrote it during COVID, so it got to be published. I made it ready for prime time. When I wrote it in 1992, it was terrible. But I rewrote it in 2020 and rewrote it again about 2 years ago. And Grand Central bought it. So that one's kind of special to me because it's a little autobiographical in there. Um, the Amber Room was my first published novel, so it always has a little, as a firstborn, has a little special. But the rest of the books I kind of all love kind of equally. I really do love them all equally. They're all special to me because they all came about in a very special way. So I can't really put one above the other there. There were some questions that came in the chat, but I got to figure out, oh, there they are. I can call them up that way. Okay, let's see. Oh, there they are. I can see them now. Uh, Someone asked, did your initial reaction to the codec change over time, or did your energy towards it stay consistent? Um, I don't really understand. Did your initial reaction to the coding change over time? Oh, the codex change over time, or did you interest? No, I was pretty much there because I spent 6 months doing preliminary research on the book. So I read a lot about the codex, and there's not a lot out there, by the way. But when I went to Stockholm to do the research, I met with the curator of the book there. He spent a day with me, and he gave me a book on it, which was very helpful, by the way, extremely helpful. And that codex, that book he gave me, helped a lot in me writing it and putting it together. It gave me a lot of good, solid information I could count on. For me, writing a novel is an 18-month process. There's 6 months of preliminary research, then 12 months of research while I'm writing the book. So my impressions of it kind of stay the same. Can you tell a little more about what your Walt Disney book? Oh, I can't tell a lot about the Walt Disney book, but I will say this about it. In 1941, Disney took a trip to South America. It's the first time he'd ever been there. And he was sent there by the United States State Department on a goodwill tour. The Nazis were making inroads in South America in that time. We were worried that they were going to be able to establish bases and a foothold there. They asked the South Americans, who would you like to see? They had sent movie stars down there and some other people, and they weren't impressed. They wanted to see Disney. They wanted Walt Disney. So they got Disney, and Disney got a group of his Imagineers. They weren't called that then. They were animators for him then. And they went to South America for about a 10-week goodwill tour. He was also told to keep his eyes and ears open for things and report back what he saw. So he kind of acted like a spy in some respects. I've added something else that happened during that trip, and then it comes forward to modern day, and there's an interesting treasure hunt and an interesting adventure that Luke Daniels gets caught up in. Let's see.
Okay. We have another question that was, how much time do you devote to research for each book?
18 months, 18 months of research. I use around 300 to 400 sources for each novel. These are all books, basically, all books. I get most of them at a giant used bookstore in Jacksonville called the Chamblin Book Mine, which is wonderful. They have an enormous amount of books there, and I get a lot there. I buy the rest of them when I'm on the research trips or when I'm in the places. I get a lot of those there. They're really all behind me on all of these shelves is where most of them are stored right now, is where they are. So 3 to 400. I don't read 3 to 400 books, but I do read large chunks of those books. So I need a good index. That's why ebooks are useless to me. I need an index.
Okay, awesome. So I have a question for you about,
Sure.
I believe it was your first Colton Malone book, The Templar Legacy.
Yes.
So as the Knights Templar still exist today, there are, as the York Rite, and there are commanderies, but it's also a very secret organization, like Masonry, Freemasonry, and the Knights Templar don't disclose secrets. So how was that a challenge researching for that particular work?
Well, it was a challenge because I didn't want to write about the Templars like Hollywood portrays them. They were very different than the Hollywood images. These were men who never bathed, ever, ever bathed. No matter how dirty or sweaty, they never bathed. They wore heavy chainmail. They had long beards. They had all of these things. They were a very tough group of people. They had a very tough, what they call rule. That was the rules they lived by. I wanted to depict the Templars as they actually were, and that's what you see in the Templar legacy. I added in there something very interesting. This is one of my religion books. I did 5 books with religion. That was sort of the so what of the novel. And this was my first one, second one dealing with that. And it was still remains to this day my largest selling book is The Templar Legacy. And that's where you first meet Cotton Malone. That's the first book where he comes on the scene. I didn't think I'd get to write 20 books with him. I was just trying to write one, and he caught on, and I got to keep him going, and he's still going strong today. I'm asked here, I have a question. Um, what is my writing process like? Where do I write? Well, you see where I write, right here. I write here at this credenza. I do everything on the computer. I do not do everything handwritten. I used to do handwritten hand edits, but nobody really does that anymore. All the edits are now done in track changes on the manuscript. It's just I'll be honest with you, I was one of the last ones in the world to adapt over to it, but I did. It needed to be. It does make things go a lot faster. The desk you see behind me, I bought at Sam's in 1984. The credenza right here in front of me, I bought at Sam's in 1984. And this is back when Sam's had, this is solid wood furniture. This stuff is really sturdy. It has gone to me through 3 houses. We moved down to Orlando a few years ago, and I was going to get rid of it and get a new one, but my wife would not let me do it. She said, we have to keep it. I wrote every novel, everything I've ever written has been at this desk. I practiced law at this desk for 30 years, so it's kind of a good luck charm. I find that I can only be really productive here. I can edit on the road, but I'm not a good writer on the road. So I do most 95% of the writing right here at this desk and at this credenza, and I do it electronically on the computer. Do I have a favorite historic preservation project that I've been a part of? He's referring to the My History Matters Foundation that Elizabeth and I started in 2009. We have done about 80 to 90 projects around the country. We've raised around $3 million for various historic projects. We do little projects. We've done books, magazine, books, newspapers, posters, libraries, cemeteries, buildings, small projects where 50 to 150, $200,000 makes all the difference in the world. And we do that through teaching a writer's workshop. It's a 4-hour workshop where we teach the craft of writing. We've taught around 3,000 students, and they buy their way in with a contribution, and all that money goes to the project that we're there to support. We don't charge to come, we pay our own expenses. So everything we raise goes to the project. And like I said, we've done around 90, 85 to 90 with about $3 million. We're very selective in what we pick. If anybody has a project that they might be interested in, they can go to my website, steveberry.org, the History Matters tab, send us an email, and we'll see if we can come help you out. Then you said, could you talk about the collaboration project with Grant Blackwood? Okay, it's interesting. Every writer does it differently. In my case, Grant had never, he just doesn't know my voice because he writes his stuff his way. I write my stuff my way. But when we're doing a collaboration like this, we're writing the books to my audience. So it's got to be in my voice. So I told Grant, I said, don't worry about that. Just write the book. If you can put some of it in my voice, great, but don't beat yourself over the head if you can't. Just write the draft. And so I gave the idea, I came up with the idea for the novels and I gave them to him. And then he took it from there. And I said, you're not married to what I give you. You can do what you want with it and, move in any direction you feel necessary. And then he writes the first draft. Then I take it and I rewrite the novel from start to finish into my voice. It takes me about 2 months, 3 months to rewrite it. And I rewrite the whole thing into my voice. I find it just works better that way. Sure, if I had a co-writer who could write exactly like me in my voice, that would be lovely, and I could only do edits at that point. But that's a tall order. It's hard to find folks that can do that. So this works well for us. It's done well for us, and we've done 3 books this way. It says, are you still hosting visits to some of the locales in your books? We used to do what's called the Steve Berry and fans trips, and we would go to a place in the novel, like the Templar Legacy. We went to southern France. We went to Rennes-le-Château. We went to all of the sites in the novel. And I take the people who come with us and I show them how I created the novel right there in the places. And we did this there. We did this in Prague. We did it in Key West for the Bishop's Pawn. We did it in Germany for the Third Secret and the Charlemagne Pursuit. We did 7 of these trips. I don't know if there'll be any more. They kind of ran their course. They were great fun, but I don't know if we would do it again. It was a lot to put them together and to assemble them. We had a lot of fun. We met a lot of new people. We established some new friends, and who knows? I won't say never, but there's none in the near future. Have any of the novels been optioned? Yes, I've been optioned. I can't even count how many, 15, 20 times. That's how many it's been. I don't even know how many. It never anything comes of it though. They option it, they pay me money, the option runs out, and we go to the next person. Nothing's ever happened. We came close with Amazon. They optioned them. But we got down, we had a showrunner, a producer, a script. We got to the green light stage and they decided not to. They purchased James Bond, so they kind of moved off in another direction. So unfortunately, we got close with Amazon, but no cigar there. I still own the film rights, so if anyone's a producer out there and is interested in producing them, let me know. How do you balance factual accuracy with thrilling narrative? Well, this is the hardest thing that we do in my genre is mixing information with action. It's the toughest thing because the folks who read Dan Brown's books, my books, James Rollins' books, and other folks in our genre, in our subgenre of the international suspense thriller, um, they want that history. They want that information, but you can't have too much. It becomes an encyclopedia then. It slows things down. I'm not saying I'm great at it. I am saying that I'm conscious of it and I try very hard to mix information and action as careful as I can. My wife Elizabeth, who co-owns a publishing company called Blue Box Press, they've had 3 #1 New York Times bestsellers there. She's an editor, so she's the first reader of my books, and she kind of keeps me straight there to make sure we don't have too much. This book, The Devil's Bible, is a little unique because it is the shortest novel I've ever written. It's 90,000 words. Most of my books are 100 to 110. I've done 120. I've even done 130. Now, you might think writing shorter is quicker and easier. It is not. It is harder and more difficult. Remember what Lincoln said when he was writing letters home to the families of dead soldiers. He apologized to one mother, saying, if I had had more time, I would have written it shorter. And he's right. It takes longer and harder to write shorter. This was a challenge for me. Every book I write, I try to do one thing craft wise that I've never done before. That keeps me interested. It's a challenge that keeps me interested, and it's kind of fun to do something I've never done before. This one was the shortest book I've ever written, and it was hard because it's tight. It's a 48-hour ride. Everything happens really quick. There's no wasted scenes, there's no wasted words. Everything is important. It moves really fast. And I'm going to try to do that, keep going with that. I learned how to do it here, but as I said, it was a challenge. Uh, let's see. If Cotton would go to the screen, who would you like to see cast? I have no idea. I really don't. I have a feeling it would be an unknown or someone you've seen just a little bit, like in Jack Reacher, where they went and got Alan Richter, who's been in stuff, but has not been very big, and they brought him in. It would be somebody in that neighborhood, if I had to guess, someone that you didn't know a lot about, but not a rookie. We had not got to the casting stage when Amazon pulled the plug on it. So I don't know. It'd be fun. Who knows? It would be. Um, it would be fun to see it come to life, and who knows, it might. One of the problems with my stuff is you got to go to the locales. You can't fake it. You got to go to the churches, the castles. You got to go there. They're part of the scene. They're part of the novel. They're not just fluff or background. They figure into the outcome of the novel. So there would be some location shooting which would be expensive, and I think that may scare off a lot of producers. Uh, you mentioned that there was a difference between your writing voice and Grant Blackwood's. How would you describe your writing versus how you learn your voice? You learn your voice by continually writing, and you will see that you develop a style of your own. And when you're reading other people's stuff, you begin to edit it in your mind into your own voice. And that comes from practice, 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 practice. And we all have our voice. You don't want to copy someone else. No one wants to do that. But when you're co-writing, and you're writing to my audience, you do have to do a little bit of mimicking, but good co-writers can do that. And Grant, over time, was getting better and better at writing in my voice. Yes, he was. So it was developing and coming as you did it. So it's hard because you've got your own style and you guard that style jealously, and you don't want to write like somebody else. But when you're co-writing, you kind of have to. So in that's the good and the bad of it. Good co-writers though adapt, and they know that. They know they're writing to my audience, so they've got to write it that way. My style is very short, less than 10 words per sentence, quick to the point, short chapters. My characters barely talk, but when they do, it's important. They just don't chit chat. They say when they talk, it's really important what they say. I'm very careful about that. The interior monologue is right to the point. I don't like cartoonish stuff. I don't like Dudley Do-Right dialogue, I call it. By the same token, I don't like Snidely Whiplash dialogue for the bad guy. Those of you who are older know who I'm talking about with Bullwinkle. And so I don't like any of that. I like it. I like my guys to, they're they have their flaws. They get afraid. They make mistakes. They're not superhuman though, and they don't make idle threats. My female characters are extremely strong. I don't have any weak female characters. I don't have that. So Grant had to adapt to that to somewhat, that all of my female characters have great strength about them. Let's see. Do I always make a trip to the primary locale? Generally speaking, I do, yes. A couple of exceptions. I didn't go to Antarctica for Charlemagne Pursuit or to China for the Emperor's Tomb. But I had a friend of mine who did go to China, and he brought me back enormous pictures and insight. That's probably the only two exceptions. Most of the time, there's at least one trip per novel. And I don't go just to go. I go because there are things you cannot find in books, you cannot find anywhere. You need to go on the scene to be there. And in Stockholm, I learned a lot. I learned an enormous amount of stuff I would have never learned if I had not been there. These trips are well planned in advance. They're just not, wandering around. They're very targeted. And we have a certain number of days and we make them all count. And, because I need to get back and get to work, I got 12 months to do the book. I don't have a lot of time to be doing that. I've got to go get what I need, get back and apply it. What advice do I have to aspiring writers? Well, the number one advice I would have to you is to write. You have to write. You have to write every day. You have to write all the time. And you have to keep writing because your writing is going to change. If you read my book, The Amber Room, and you read The Devil's Bible, you're going to see a big difference in the way I wrote a novel. You're going to see a big difference in how the scenes are, how everything plays out, because I learned over the last 20 years how to make it tighter, cleaner, smoother. Writing evolves every day, and all you can hope for is what you wrote today is better than what you wrote yesterday, and what you write tomorrow is a little bit better than what you wrote today. You just try to get a little bit better every day. You never master it, you never get good or great at it. You just get a little bit better at it. And the only way to do that is write. And then you also have to read in your genre. You've got to know your genre because each genre has different rules and different things that are expected of it and different things that readers want to see. And you've got to be able to do that. I'm working with a young writer right now, and unfortunately, he had a bad habit because he didn't read. He didn't read the genre. And I finally had to tell him, well, you're not gonna make it in here. You have no chance of getting this done unless you read the genre. You've got to know what you're doing, particularly if you want to be a commercial fiction writer, because you've got to know what works and what doesn't work in that genre. So you've got to write every day. You got to read. I used to read 4, 5, 6 books a month, usually first novels, because I wanted to see what people coming up were doing. I wanted to see what editors were buying. This was back during the 12 years of rejection. Today, I don't get to do that. I get to read maybe 3, 4 novels a year. There's just not time to do that. But back then, I would read 50, 60, 70 books a year. And I'm reading them like textbooks. I'm studying them. Bad novels will teach you as much or more than good novels will. You learn from both writings because when you read a bad novel, you go like, why am I bored? Why am I bored? Figure it out. Why am I bored? Why did this scene not work for me? Why did I not care about this character? What is it? What's happening here? You got to study all that. And to this day, when I'm reading novels, I do that. I study things and learn from them because you need to learn the craft from other writers, and it's perfectly okay to steal craft. You can steal the craft of someone. How did he do that? How did he block that scene out? How did he do that? I learned a lot. I learned enormous amount of information, enormous amount of craft from the Da Vinci Code. And if you read The Third Secret, and then if you read The Templar Legacy, you're going to see a difference in those two novels, a huge difference in these two novels. Because in between, I read Da Vinci and I learned how to do things differently. I'm not the only one. There were a lot of thriller writers that learned from Da Vinci. So read your genre, write every day. How did my experiences as a lawyer and elected official influence my career? Not much at all, to be honest with you. I was a lawyer for 30 years and I served 14 years in public office. Uh, as a lawyer, I was a divorce lawyer and a criminal defense lawyer. I was in court a lot. I did a lot of stuff. I saw people at their worst. So my writing was to escape that, to get away from that. That's what I did, is to escape it, to get away. I didn't really want to write about it. My first novel I ever wrote was a legal thriller. The very first one I wrote in 1990 was a legal thriller. It was about this tall. It was 170,000 words, which is just awful. And I learned very quickly that I didn't want to write legal thrillers. Write what you know is really bad advice. Write what you love. That's what you do. Now, if what you know and what you love are the same thing, super. But if not, pick what you love. I knew the law, but I loved action, history, secrets, conspiracies. Back then, they were called spy novels. Today, they're called international suspense thrillers. So I very quickly moved away from legal thriller. Interesting thing, though, that 170,000 word legal thriller I rewrote a few years ago. Now it's 100,000 words. So it's 70,000 words came out of it. By the way, I didn't change any of the story. It's just junk words that didn't need to be there. I rewrote it again about a year ago, and it's going to get published sometime in the next 3, 4 years. So it's that one is very special to me because it's somewhat autobiographical, and it's a really good legal thriller story, and it is going to make it one soon, sometime in the next 3, 4 years, maybe it'll get to publish. So that would be really wonderful to have that first book, that first story that I envision. Good story, poorly told, but now it's ready for prime time. Now it's ready to go. It says, am I still involved with international thriller writers? I'm still a member, but I'm not an officer or director. No, my time was ended about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. My time ended. So other people run it now. I was involved for it about 15 years and moved on, but I am still a member. Yes. Did I always want to be a writer growing up? No, no, I didn't. I wanted to be a reader. I did read. I read a lot. And I had a little voice in my head all during the 1980s telling me to write. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I ignored it. And finally, in 1990, I started to write. And when I started to write, the voice hushed. And I learned that if I write, the voice doesn't bother me. But if I don't write, it nags me to death. And every writer I've ever met, every writer has the same exact little voice. So I had that voice. I just didn't understand it until 1990. I still understand it to this day. I still have the little voice. Now, when that little voice goes quiet in your head and quits telling you to write, that's when you're done. And I know writers, that's when they're done. They just can't do it anymore. They're done. They're finished. But thankfully for me, it's still there and still going, so I still can keep going. Is there any plan to bring Tom Sagan back? I'd love to bring him back. He was in the Columbus affair. I would love to see whatever happened to him. That was a really great standalone thriller that dealt with Christopher Columbus and whether or not he might have been Jewish, which is interesting. There was a great book written about it called Columbus Was a Jew, written by the great Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal, wrote the book. I fashioned a modern day thriller around it. It was a lot of fun. It's set in Jamaica. That's another one where I went down there for 4 days, and the novel kind of came to me while I was there. So the Columbus Affair was there, and I'd love to find out. Who knows? One day, maybe Tom Sagan might make a return visit. Given my works are based on real historical events and objects, Cotton based on actual person. Yeah, me. He's basically me. When I created him in 2004, and for the Templar legacy that came in 2006, I was not, I didn't know, I just decided to use me. It was easier just to put him together. So he has a lot of my traits, a lot of my fears, a lot of my personality. Cassiopeia Witt, his love interest, is basically my wife Elizabeth. And there's actual conversations that we have that are in the novels that no one knows but us. There's actual arguments we've had that are in the novels that no one knows but us. I never intended for Cotton to be monogamous. I kind of wanted him to play the field. It was more fun for me as a writer to have new ones come in all the time. But Elizabeth said, no, we can't do that. I broke them up in the end of one of the books, and she said, no, we're not doing that either. So now they're together, and now they work as a team, and now they're comfortable with each other, and who knows what's going to happen to them. It might be part of that upending of Cotton's world that some changes are coming to that relationship, but I won't say yes or no on that. Other questions?
I've got another one, I guess. Is there anything that from like a historical event or an object that you will not write about that you're just like, I don't want anything to do with that?
No, well, I mean, like I would never do the Mona Lisa. I mean, that's Da Vinci Code and it's been done to death. I don't like to do things that people have done. Uh, some of the stuff I've done, some people have touched on, but I try to stay original to it. I don't want to. I don't want to do something. Jim Rollins and I sometimes dovetail one another because we don't know that because we don't communicate with each other and say, this is what I'm writing, this is what you're writing. But a lot of times we'll both find the same thing. The Devil's Bible, for example, he got mentioned in Dan Brown's new book, The Secret of Secrets, because it has a connection to Prague, where that book is set. So I had no idea he was doing that. He had no idea I was doing it. It just happens by accident. But I try not to do things that people have done to death. I want to do things that have never been done or barely touched on. And, the last thing a world writer wants to do is copy somebody. I mean, I certainly don't want to do that. I want to do my own thing. So I would probably avoid things that have been done over and over again. And Tanya says that Elizabeth is the boss with romance, and that is true. She is the boss of romance. And so I defer to her. Who are some of my favorite writers and favorite books? I mean, I'm a thriller junkie. I mean, I have a complete Ludlum collection. I like Cussler. I have a Cussler collection. Frederick Forsyth, have all those. My favorite writer of all time is James Michener, who wrote historical fiction. I have a complete Michener collection, which I love his stuff. I mean, it's wonderful. He was a hell of a writer. Uh, I have assorted books of thrillers that I really like. Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth is one of my favorite books. Love that book. Really well done. So I have some special favorites that I have on the shelves back here, right here behind me. Those shelves that you see right there have my collection of fiction. I don't have a lot. I used to have more room, so I had more, but I kept all my special books there. I have a complete James Rollins. I love Jim's book. I got his new book today. I had it here. I don't know where I put it. Oh, it's over there. His new book that came out Tuesday. I always read his books. Him and I did an event at the Poison Pen last Tuesday. That's now up on Facebook. If any of y'all want to watch it, you can watch what we did. We talked about both our books back last Tuesday. So that's kind of where I am. I'm a thriller junkie. I'm very careful because I just don't have a lot of time to read fiction anymore. Other questions?
Is there any author you would like to do a collab with that you haven't done so far?
Well, you have to. I need to find. I'd love to do stuff like with Harlan Coben did with Reese Witherspoon. Patterson is done with the Clintons. Um, Harlan Coben. I'm sorry, Harlan Coben. I think did Witherspoon. I think can't remember now, but they're doing it with a celebrity and do it. That would be fun. I wish I could do that. I don't think I'm quite big enough for that, though, to be honest with you. I think you got to be up in one stratosphere up from me. I think I'm here, they're up here. So I need to get up in that, in a little bit up. But it would be fun to do somebody, particularly someone who's noted for history and things that fit with me. It would be kind of fun to collaborate and do something like that together. Patterson, I think, started that, and it's a really smart idea because it has built-in marketing with it, built-in everything, built-in buzz. Plus, you get a lot of media with it, so it's a really smart idea. I'd love to do it, but no one's calling. Does writing ever become frustrating or arduous? Every single day, every day, all the time, and that's normal. If it's not, then you're doing something wrong. I mean, it's just writing is very difficult. It's hard, but it is not magical. Anyone can learn the craft of writing if they want to. All they have to do is apply themselves. So there's no magic to it. There's no special formula. It's just hard work. And if you want to do it, you can learn the craft of writing. That's what makes it so wonderful because anyone can acquire it. But it is hard. And it is difficult, particularly to be a commercial fiction writer in today's world, today's market. Everything is so different now. So much is competing for the reader's attention. There's a lot going on, and you got to be smart and you got to be savvy and you got to know what you're doing today. It's not a place for the faint of heart. It's not a place for the rookie. You got to really know what you're doing in here today. Do you carefully plan out each book, or do your characters sometimes surprise you? Well, I used to plot the books very carefully ahead of time. I did 4 books outlining them completely all the way through before I wrote them, but I don't do that anymore. One, there's no time. Two, I can do it in my head as I go now. I stay about 50 to 100 pages ahead of myself. I do know the ending before I start. Why? Because where do you start a book? You start a book as close to the ending as possible. That's where you start it. You start every story that way. Get an end, get as close as you can get to it, then go. That's how it works. For my case, it's about 24 to 48 hours. But I've done longer because it required me to do it a little longer. But only if I'm required to. Try to keep it as tight as I can. And I try to outline 50 to 100 pages. Now, the problem is things will occur to me later and I have to go back and fix because I haven't outlined it. But that's just the way it goes when you're doing it as you go. I'm not quite a pantser, but I'm not a planner as much anymore. I'm a little hybrid of both of them. In my credits, at the end of the books, I mentioned advisors in the military. Did you already have those contacts? Have you developed those relationships? I make the calls during when I need the research. I make the calls then and to get help, and I thank them in the acknowledgments. Anyone who helped me, I always thank them for giving me the time. And most people want to help you. They're very generous with it. They appreciate that you're interested in what they're doing and they can be very helpful. When I call them, I don't waste their time. I have specific questions, specific things I want to ask. When I'm on the ground and I'm meeting with people, I don't do a lot of chit chat. I go in. I don't want to waste their time. I want to get the information. Let's go. The guy with the Devil's Bible, Patrick, was wonderful. He spent all day with us, and he said, "No, I'm here all day. Let's do this. This is great." He always does academic stuff, so he was really getting into it, and he had a lot. We had a lot of fun, and he helped a lot. And then at the end, he said, "I have a book I want to give you," and we drove to his house and got the book that he gave me, which was lovely. And I thanked him in the front. I believe you said that your first novel was rejected eight. Now, my first 5 of my first 8 manuscripts were rejected 85 times. How did you remain persistent? Well, there's only one way you do it. It's the little voice in your head. The little voice keeps you going. Now, I wasn't Superman. I quit 2 or 3 times during that 12 years. I said, this is stupid. I'm wasting my time. I need to practice law. I need to not worry about this. And then after about 3 days, the little voice would say, okay, you've had your pity party now. Let's get back to work. It wouldn't let me quit. So that's what you have to do. You have to listen to the little voice. But I kept reading and I kept writing and I kept learning the craft. Remember, no one can teach you how to write. There's no such thing as a writing teacher. It doesn't exist. But there are people who can teach you how to teach yourself how to write. Yes, there are. And if you find those people, you can learn a lot. And I was fortunate to find people who could teach me how to teach myself how to write. And if you're willing to teach yourself how to write and stay with it, one day Lady Luck will shine on you. And in my case, it was 12 years, 85 rejections later. Lady Luck one day said, today's your day, buddy. You're going to give it to you. And Random House bought 2 of my books. And it just came to be after all that time. Is there anything you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started? Yes, I should have started sooner. Absolutely. I wasted 10 years. I should have started in the 80s, and that's when I should have done. I just literally blew 10 years. Just listening to that little voice and doing nothing. Absolutely doing nothing. Saying, I think I should write. I'm not sure. The little voice says, yeah. And then another part of me said, what am I doing? It's crazy. But when I started writing, I didn't know what I was doing. I wrote a 170,000 word manuscript. I had to go get help. And I got myself in a writer's workshop. And I went every Wednesday night for 6 years. 6 years. I didn't miss 5 times in 6 years. And I would take my chapter and I would read it out loud and they would destroy it. They would destroy it. And then I'd go back home and I'd rewrite it, listening to what they had to say. Now, here's the problem. 80% of what those folks are going to tell you in that writers group is pure garbage that you never want to listen and you never want to use. But 20% of it is gold, just the gold. How do you know the difference? Time. Time teaches you. First couple of years, I didn't even know there was a difference between garbage and gold. It was all just jumbled up to me. Then I began to realize there was a difference, and then I began to see the difference. And what are you doing there? When you're seeing that difference, you're developing your own voice. You're developing your voice as you want. We had one lady in the group who was real tight. She wrote so tight. We called her the Queen of Lean. She was so tight. She was too tight. Then we had another writer in the group that was too much. So I'd get two different opinions there. And I had to listen to both to get my own opinion in the middle and learn. But it took 6 years going there to do that. This is part of the discipline of writing. You have to teach yourself the craft. Do you feel pressured by publishers to add in advertisements subtly or blatantly? No, no, I do all that myself. I add all that in. And what really ticks me off is my friend Lee Child puts stuff in the Jack Reacher books and he gets free merchandise and all kinds of cool stuff, free hotel rooms and all this. I've been putting the stuff in for years. I got nothing, absolutely nothing from it. Yeah, he gets all kinds of things, but I put it in myself. I learned that from Stephen King. He likes to put those real things in there. It grounds the story a little bit. So I try to do it. And most of it's stuff that I personally experienced and personally have been to. Like in this book, John Westlake stays at the Grand Hotel in Stockholm, and I stayed there in the same room that he stayed in. So it was kind of fun to add that in. All right. Other questions? Oh, here comes. Do you have any goals for yourself as a writer? Yeah, I love, you always have to have goals. So I'm going to do something new in each book. So I don't know what that's going to be in the next book. Next book really was using Disney. I wanted to use Disney in a novel really bad, not just in a hokey way or a collateral way, but part of the plot. So that was there. I'm writing the 2028 Cotton Malone book. So it's going to have something interesting there that I'm doing different. Um, I had a lot. I can't complain. I've had a great run. I mean, I've had 29 books. We have, 26, 27 million books around the world, in 50 countries and 40 languages. And I can't complain. I've been on the lists all over. The only thing I've probably two things I feel I'll never happen, but I wish they would have happened. I have been on every slot of the New York Times list multiple times. Every slot. I can't tell you how many times I've been, except one slot. I never made it to the top. I was second 3 times, but I never made it to the top. And I doubt if I ever will, because being a #1 New York Times bestseller today is very, very different and hard than it was 15, 20 years ago. So I don't think that'll ever happen. So I missed that. And the second one is I'll never be a thriller master. I wish I could have been a thriller master with international thriller writers. That would have been fun. I helped create that thriller master. I helped create that whole thing, but I'll never be that either. So that would be those are the two things I probably regret. But you can't have everything. I've had a great run, and I get to keep doing it, in the future. Other questions?
I think you're selling yourself short. You definitely can get in that first spot. You're
Ah,
pretty amazing.
Oh, it's going to take a lot of books to do that. A lot of books. Back in the old days, you could get on that slot in 15,000, 18,000, 20,000. Today, it's 30, 40, 50,000 week one. It's a lot. And you have to have some lightning strike, we call it, a lightning strike that ignites the book, and it just ignites on its own. And unfortunately, you can't plan a lightning strike, nor can you create one. It just happens organically. It's just a different world today than it was then. So probably never be that way. And I used to bother me. It doesn't as much anymore. I've kind of made my peace with it. So someone asked, how and when do you get an agent? Well, getting an agent's harder than getting a publisher, to be honest with you. Uh, for me, I sent out 400 letters, and I was lucky in 1995 that I got an agent, which was incredible. 400 queries, one person took me, which is amazing. And she stayed with me during 85 rejections, and she was with me for the first 13 novels that I did. And then I had to shift over to another agency. She told me I would outgrow her one day, and I said, no, I never would. But actually, I did outgrow her. And we had to, it was sad. It was like death in the family. But she was great about it. She says, no, you got to go. She was a one-person show, and I needed something more worldwide. So I moved to Writer's House, and Writer's House has me now and has had me for a long time now. And but getting an agent is tough. But that's really hard today. You got to send the query letters out. You got to send out the samples and you got to go at it as hard as you can. But you need an agent if you're going to submit your work to a publisher. They don't take stuff just coming in out of nowhere. Other questions? Hmm. No more, it looks
Okay, if
like.
there are no other questions, I see Dr. Deb Casey, our president. If you would like to give some closing remarks.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Mongor. Steve, I just want to say I came in tired tonight, to be honest with you, and you have just re-energized me in 45 minutes worth of
Oh,
time. So thank you for that. I do think 29 books is a legacy in itself, and I'm gonna defer to Julie's comment. Tonight, you are the bestseller, number one on the
oh,
bestseller
thank you.
list.
Thank you.
Okay. All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you. I'll take it.
All right. Thank you for inspiring our readers and our educators because I think that is so important and often history gets lost in it being so political. And I really appreciate the ability that you have to tell a story. And truly, I can see your passion about writing what you love. I
Mhm,
think that is meaningful.
mhm.
And, so much of the work we do with our community college mission is about inspiring students to do things that they have never done before. So tonight, your message about that life lesson of doing something you've never done before resonates with me. I think it resonates with the people who listen to you and who have read your novels. So if there is anything in our future that we can do for you to get you on that number one spot, we'll keep buying. You keep
Keep
writing,
buying.
we'll
That's all we
keep
can do.
buying. Okay.
Yeah.
And we just love having your voice alongside our students and our faculty and staff. Thank you for the influence you have on us and for everything you've done to create legacy. You've truly done that.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank everyone for coming. Let's give Steve another round of applause and with the
There they
emojis.
come. There they go. I've never seen. That's really neat. That's really cool.
So I hope everyone can join us for our next Echoes and Visions event, which is Monday, March 30th, which will feature Spanish Civil War novelist Julian Zabal Velasco. And on Wednesday, April 3rd, we have Dorian Lux for our last presentation of the semester for National Poetry Month. Thank you all so much, and thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you for having me. Bye bye.
Bye.